Welcome to hour number 2 on a Monday with hashtag Daily K's host, Peter Bind. Tired of just scratching the surface of Korea? Want to get deep in the weeds?
We unpack everything about Korea through its history on
Now and Then with David. It is a Monday. David's in the studio. I'm in the studio. That's the first time for weeks, it does seem. And I'm sure that's not the only reason you got a smile on your face, David. Your team did incredibly well last night against Manchester United. You're happy?
Your team did incredibly well as well.
Boom. We are rocking it.
I have Pete on record saying that Arsenal aren't going to win the league this season. So if and when they do, that clip will be coming out.
I will be happy for that clip to be played ad infinitum as long as we can win the title. It was my head speaking over my heart, and I'm still not sure. There's still, about 13 games to go. It's only 5 points. I need a bigger buffer with Man City. Enough about the Premier League. We are a Korean culture show. I haven't seen you for ages, David. How have you been doing? You're back to regular semester at the university and everything?
Yeah, man. Life is good. We missed you, though, Pete. We missed you. There was a big Mr. Bint void in our weekly schedule.
I'm glad to hear that. I haven't been back to UK in 5.5 years. You went back in autumn, right, for your brother's
I went back for my brother's wedding, and my mum has just been here for 2 weeks. She left yesterday.
Oh, wow.
You went to England, and England came to me.
Oh, how was that? Did you take your mother anywhere special?
We went to all the places I was going to say, but I don't think I can say because of brand names. We had a fabulous time. We went to theme parks, restaurants, water parks, all of that.
Wow. Did she enjoy her 2 weeks here?
She's back home, and she said that she can still hear the words nanny, 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 nanny ringing in her ears, and I think that's all that matters. She wasn't here for me.
Yeah. They're for the grandkids. And you know, me going the opposite way, I haven't been in ages, and it was for work mainly, so I wasn't really, I don't know, not looking forward to it is the wrong expression, but I wasn't expecting too much. But now I really miss the UK. It's given me the homesickness bug. Yeah. And I'm really thinking, do I want to go back and live in London? I don't know. Maybe it was because I wasn't doing my regular 9 to 5-ish job.
I think I saw some of what you were doing back in the UK, and I think that is going to be a beautiful experience. I can't wait to see the recordings and videos and TV shows that it all comes out. Yeah. I think if you were going to the office at 6 o'clock in the morning and doing that, you would have a different impression of the UK.
I think you're right. Maybe. I spent many times just in local parks and playgrounds where all the kids were at school in Britain, so my kids had the free reign of zip lines and things like this. It's a biased view, isn't it? Today's topic, interesting title, A Magician from Fairyland.
A magician from Fairyland.
What are we talking about?
Who could that be? Let's just get right. Let's put up this picture that the producer has here.
Okay.
Look. You know who that gentleman is, Mr. Bin.
I've seen him parodied, maybe more than I've seen him himself in photos and stuff, right? Yes. André Kim, the fashion designer.
André Kim, the fashion designer. Wow. I want to talk about his life and influence because, as you say, Pete, everybody in Korea knows him. He's recognizable. He has a signature. But more than that, he almost became a thing of caricature. Yeah. He became a parody that if you wear big white baggy clothes and put some black paint on your head, perhaps the voice as well, there are certain mannerisms, you become André Kim. And he's known to so many Korean people. And I thought, let's have a look at K-fashion. Let's have a look at one of the first real kind of Hallyu stars. And I know this Hallyu star gets thrown around a lot. I saw people trying to describe Sejong the Wang as the first Hallyu star. And I'm not caught on that one, but André Kim is definitely part of this Korean wave and popularity abroad. Yeah, and André Kim is the one on the right, by the way, listeners.
Yeah, with the head painted black, and the white, bald head, and the white clothes. And I'm really, really happy that we're talking about him because I'm sure there must be a big proportion of our listeners who don't know who he is. Right. He passed away a fair while back now. And he's not like your K-pop star or your movie star or anything like that. Fashion designer extraordinaire. I think many Koreans, even if they don't remember him being alive, they'll know his brand and things like this as well. To this
Absolutely.
day.
Somebody so well known, and I just thought let's spread his awareness to people. Before we get into André Kim, let's maybe K-fashion. What's your take on Korean fashion, Pete? Because you've just been back home and now you're here.
Yeah.
Do you notice anything about the way K-people dress?
If we're talking about like attire and dress, the striking thing when we went back to the UK was how many people wear shorts and t-shirts despite it being wintry weather.
Yes.
You know, in Korea, that is not seen like almost at all. So all the Koreans we were with, who we were filming with, were like, Peter, why are English people... Well, yeah, they didn't do it like that, except when they were teasing the British accent. Why are they wearing like shorts? Or why is that guy wearing a t-shirt when it's like 8 degrees outside? And so I guess maybe there's more variety in the West. A lot of people just do what they want to do, wear what they want to wear. I'd say with Koreans, though, a lot of them look so smart. Like, you go outside, there are lots of beautiful-looking people. Ooh. I would have to say that. And K-fashion has become more and more of a thing, especially thanks to, like, K-pop stars and, like, airport fashion and things like this. Yeah. I think we're fashionable people.
In Korea, we say the water is good. When people are looking good here. But this is an amazing point that you make about people wearing shorts and T-shirts when it's cold.
Yeah.
In Korea, there's a lot of focus on people's comfort.
Yeah.
People will dress to be comfortable and they'll wear these baggy clothes. And if it's cold, you wrap up.
Yes.
If it's hot, then you take off the clothes. Whereas that's not always the case. Also in Korea, let's just do this one. You also dress to express your love, don't you? Huh?
The couple outfits.
The couple outfit. I just want to show people because you get this idea that couple outfits are incredibly matching, right? They're identical, but that's not always the way. You'll see couples here in Korea, and they use fashion as an expression of love. Yeah. And they'll have the same brand, but different colors, or they'll have similar styles. They'll have denim and leather or things like that. I think it's kind of cool.
Yeah, they've definitely, done that in advance. They've planned it. Yeah. It's not just coincidence that they come out of their respective houses if they're not married, in many of the cases. But yeah, when I first saw that when I got to Korea, I was so confused because I don't think that's a thing in the UK. Maybe you dress up your twins the same sometimes as a parent. Yeah. But aside from that, I never saw boys and girls often as well. Like you said, they could be different shades. Sometimes they're the exact same outfits, like the exact same brands and colours, from the sneakers to the shirts and trousers. And I was like, what is happening here?
It's a bit different, but I was really rallied against it in my 20s when girlfriends would try to do this to me and let's buy this and let's wear this together.
Yeah.
One of tell these stories. One of my early girlfriends, she bought me a pair of shoes. She said, hey, try this. Do you like them? I was like, they're amazing. Thank you very much. Tried them on. I said, I love them. And then she went, I've got the same pair. And I don't like them anymore.
No, immediately. The only time I did it with my missus when we were dating was with an Arsenal shirt as well. I bought her one and I was like, I can get on board with this. This looks good.
Yeah, I get that.
And it is very sweet. I've got to say that. Yeah, it's a really like overt expression of we're together, And maybe in the West, sometimes we're a little bit less inclined to do that. But then again, public displays of affection are much more common in the West, I suppose.
They are. Speaking of sweetness, when I was doing this research on André Kim, let's get back to Mr. Kim. Like every picture that I found of him, he just looks so happy, so full of life. We'll try to show you another one here just so you can get to know this gentleman. But sadly no longer with us, as Pete said. But he was, he was parried, but he was known for his volunteer work, his overall kind-heartedness, his creativity, his compassion. When I was doing research on him, you would expect to find, people at the top of the industry, scandals and all of these things, Weinsteins, but no, just a beautiful man that sort of seemed to exude a real positive vibe throughout his life. And the photos that you find with him, he just has this smile. You can see people were calling you grumpy. I heard before I came, but you're not a grumpy guy at all, not at all.
And he doesn't look like that as well.
No, and I have to take like 20 photos to get one that looks good. He gets it first time, this man.
Yeah, he's known for that really interesting hairstyle, right? In this picture, unlike the last one, which was black and white, you see, like, he's got some short black hair, and then still he's painted some of his head in that.
It's a bit Boy George.
Colour,
sorry, a British musician, but like I notice my hair receding as I go through my 40s, and I guess one way to combat that would be get some black paint and go for it. That's what Mr. Kim did. And that's what he became known for. Like, it was his trademark. But he wasn't shy about it. He wasn't wearing a wig. He was like, paint my hair black. Go for it.
Like, because there are products in Korea, because we're much more sensitive. Maybe this is another fashion thing to talk about receding hairlines here. In the UK, a lot of kids, even in high school, start getting a receding hairline, and that's just normal.
It's all that testosterone.
Maybe, yeah, lots of facial hair to make up for it, right? But here in Korea, there's less male pattern baldness, I'd say, at an early age. So when it starts happening, I always notice my hairdressers like being more concerned than me. They were like, "Oh, Peter, you're Mja." So it's the M pattern that happens where, you know, the male pattern baldness happens at the sides. They'd be all worried. And I'd be like, "I've got lots more hair than my British friends. What are you talking about?" And you as well, for a Brit, that's a lot of hair for us in our 40s. But they do have those products where you can black out the sides to make it look. But usually it's more subtle than André Kim, but he was just like up front, maybe. Maybe it's part of his fashion.
I've had the same hairdresser for 10 years, and he said he worried about my hair at the beginning because 10 years ago it was basically like this. And he said, "Do you know why you've still got your hair, David? It's because you eat kimchi." And I think he was being serious. He was like, "You eat your vegetables. Well done, David." So thank you, Korean vegetables, for this. But André Kim, the real first Hallyu star. And I wanted to talk about him today because he was one of the few Koreans before Big Bang, before aespa, before New Jeans and Son Heung-min that the international world talked about. During the 1960s, during the 1970s and 1980s, where Korea was still stricken by poverty, military rule, and it was, it was an uncool place.
Yeah.
André Kim was cool.
Wow.
He was wanted by some of the world's biggest stars. He was talked about in the biggest magazines. He transcended. Like, this is a beautiful idea. Korea wasn't big enough for André Kim.
Back in the day, I think that was
big enough for
an accurate statement,
Welcome to Arirang Radio.
If you are in Jeju,
88.7 in Jeju City.
88.1 in Seogwipo City.
101.9 in the Daejeong area.
Arirang Radio.
We are back for part 2. David Tizard in the studio for Now and Then, talking about the famous figure in Korea's fashion history, André Kim, and global fame, it seems, was beckoning for him. I wonder how many of our listeners have heard about him. We've got lots of messages coming in, though. Josh saying, I go out to the store in 39 degrees, that's Fahrenheit, in basketball shorts and a thin jacket or a hoodie. And that's one thing a lot of Koreans just can't understand. They're like, when it's cold, you should be wearing layers and all wrapped up, and they really couldn't get their heads around it. Whereas in the West, I don't know, a lot of my friends do dress very, I would say, inappropriately for the winter, but I don't know, it's because when I was young, I think we just were like, I can't be bothered to wear.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
Get on with it. I think the weather is a bit more extreme here. When it gets cold, it gets cold. When it gets hot, it goes hot. One of the first Korean words my brother learned was panbaji, which means shorts in Korean, because it was the middle of November and he was wearing shorts and everyone said to him. And so by the end of a week or so, he'd learnt the word panbaji, shorts.
That's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
But what's really nice is Siska Adriani. Siska is saying that couple outfits are becoming more popular in Indonesia.
Ooh.
It's becoming a thing. And whether this is Koreanization, right, the Korean influence is spreading, or whether it's just youth culture, that's beautiful to see. And I have so many students from Indonesia in my Korean studies classes these days, and there's just that love for Korean stuff that comes from them. So maybe there's something going on in there, Siska.
Maybe. Tropical K saying a fun thing to do as a couple is dress together as the same. Works for casual clothes mainly, I guess. Yeah, you don't see too many people in like formal attire, like suits and ties and stuff. It's usually baggier clothes, and I always laugh when it's right down to the sneakers like that. They're really committed to their couple look.
Trainers.
Yes, I've got too Koreanized, Americanized, haven't I? I've just been back to the UK as well. What's my excuse? I bought a couple of trainers. Yeah, I did that. All right. André Kim, I don't think so far I've seen anyone who said they knew about him. Hartley, Josh, all saying it's my first time hearing about him. So
born September 21st, 1935 in Seoul. Despite being born in the 1930s, he was quite tall. He was 178 centimeters.
Oh, for that time,
For that time. When he was born, he wasn't 178 centimeters pop out, but he was always kind of a large and an ordinary childhood, right? So he has 5 siblings. His father was a farmer. But he's born during the Japanese colonial period. Now, Ode to My Father, the Korean movie.
Oh, I love that. We mentioned that for some reason. I can't remember. Oh, earlier, because the director is from Busan, I think.
Yeah.
And that's set in Busan.
And there's a sort of depiction of André Kim in that movie. So, listeners, picture the scene. You've got a poverty-stricken rural village in post-war Korea. The country's been decimated by bombs, and amongst the hardship and desolation, an unlikely character dressed in an immaculate Western suit walks into a fabric shop looking at all the materials and starts saying, "Oh, beautiful, very elegant, much fantasy," in all of this kind of broken English.
Wow.
And that, Kim Bong-nam, we'll come back to that name later, is a depiction of André Kim, a man that, while everybody else was suffering with the poverty, was still at that time wearing hanbok. Hanboks and that were the clothes. André Kim was the man of the Western elegance. And he was always, he believed, he kind of destined to that. He had to express himself that way.
Interesting. I don't remember that scene from Ode to My Father. So that's kind of not a parody, but a depiction of him.
It is a parody in some way. Yeah, absolutely. But the important thing is it's a parody that everybody of him remembers. Let's show you an early picture of him before he was painting parts of his hair.
There's not handsome chap.
Very handsome. There's not a lot of early pictures of him, so excuse the quality. But during the Korean War, he was evacuated to Busan. So everybody moves, and there he worked at the theater. So he sees these Western movies. He sees with the American troops there, and he decides, first he wanted to become an actor, but then he decided the costumes that the actors were wearing, that fashion, that's what he wanted to get involved in. And it was sort of from a very early age, he was drawn to that. He was basically a fashion guy his whole life.
Wow, and that's how he got into it, being evacuated down there, working in the theatre. Interesting. So he was quite pro-Western and like things coming in.
Look at his name. His name is André, André Kim, and he had that name since since he was in his early 20s.
Wow.
And he asked somebody, a French diplomat told him, if you want to be famous international, you need a name like André. And so he decided, I want to be fashionable. He started doing fashion runway shows and things like this in 1950s and 60s Korea. Who was doing that then? Another picture of the young man in his pomp here coming up on the screen. Look at this dude.
Is he getting married here?
No, he's not getting. He's never married. We'll come to that later. His personal life, never married. But this is him in the 1960s. In the 1960s, Korean people weren't stylish like they are now. This is a trend setter. This is an OG of Korean fashion. Man looks good.
Yeah,
I give him mad props. He's stylish.
And like you said, like Korea was maybe preoccupied with other things, like pulling itself out of the doldrums and like really quick development. But he was really focused on this side of things.
He was. And the most important thing is, while everybody was trying to get food, get money, he was a symbol of elegance. He was a symbol of luxury when the country had nothing. And that's really what made him stand out.
Wow.
There's another very important thing why he had to become an international fashion designer, because he was doing things in France in the 1960s. This is where he gets the name a magician from fairyland. Why was he doing it in France? Well, because during the 1960s, under President Park Chung-hee, there was a series of austerity measures. There was military rule. You can't have elegant fashion shows if you're trying to build a country under a military president. And so they were basically outlawed.
Wow.
So the fashion shows that André Kim did do, they were done either on American military bases or they were done abroad. So it was by necessity that this young man had to find an international audience for his work, because quite simply, under a military government that regulated hair length, skirt length, He didn't. Let's have another early picture of him. And just because I want to show the listeners, the watchers, he was always smiling, man.
Yeah.
I think that haircut shows that his hairline was going there. If I know haircuts, he was reaching. He's not quite the Bobby Moore comb over.
Wow.
But just look at him, man. He's so smiling. I wish I had the opportunity to meet him, and you only always get that once it's no longer possible.
Yeah, I've driven past, and I don't know if it's still there, but around the Cheongdam-dong kind of area, there was one of his flagship stores that said André Kim. And I think that was before he passed away. I used to see it, and my wife-to-be would tell me who this guy is. She was involved in like the fashion industry, so she had a bigger interest, but she was like, he is like out of this world, right? Even at those times. But back in the 60s, I'm imagining people must have been like completely not understanding what's going on, because I'm assuming, as well as obviously the military government, there can't have been too much appetite for the catwalk and the runway and things like this.
There was sometimes of that fantasy release from the doldrums, and so that was always there. But the point is, he was huge. He was big in Paris.
Yeah.
He was big in Milan. Wow. He was doing this. I just want to give the listeners how big he was. He was the designer for Miss Universe 1980. He designed the South Korean Olympic outfits for 1988.
Wow.
In the early 1980s, Michael Jackson, how big was Michael Jackson in the 1980s?
Okay.
He asked Andre Kim to be his personal designer.
Really?
Andre Kim refused because he said, my fashion is not just for one person, it's for the whole world.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
he didn't want to leave Korea, and so he stayed. Michael Jackson, there's still loads of performances with Michael Jackson wearing Andre Kim clothes.
I did not know
and
that.
Designers, but Andre Kim turned down Michael Jackson in the 80s.
The king of pop. At the pinnacle.
And said, no, this is a man that achieved so much. Maybe we need to know how he did what he did. We should talk about the forehead touch.
The forehead touch. All right, we'll get to that in part 3.
I'm in London.
I'm in Australia.
Tokyo.
The Philippines.
Finland, Indonesia,
New York.
Arirang Radio.
Now live in Seoul.
We are back for part 3 now and then with David Tizard taking a deep dive into Andre Kim and his life, who Siska from Indonesia says she's heard about him, knows that he's to do with fashion, but not much more. I don't know, like your average young Korean, how much more they would know as well nowadays, which is maybe a little sad. It would be nice to see some more on his life.
I think if you showed them a picture, they would go, the name might not immediately come, but there would be some recognition.
Yeah, that's true. Joshua Lee says Andre Kim makes G-Dragon look like a child. I'm guessing in terms of his fashion compared to G-Dragons, which is often seen as out there. Yeah, it doesn't compare, does it?
I would imagine G-Dragon had a lot of respect for Andre Kim and vice versa. There's probably some things you can find online. Some new people that I've not really got to see or hear from before. This is wonderful. Nian says, we get matching accessories instead. Me and my partner have the same headphones in 2 different colours. That's very cool. And Tara saying, it's interesting how fashion is cyclical. It always comes back. And what used to only be menswear or women's wear is slowly fading. Now we have, you can wear what you want. Tara, I would love to know your opinion on Sam Smith's fashion.
We also link to that. One comedian that I sometimes film with, Hwang Jae-sung, he got massive for parodying Sam Smith's fashion in the music video and whatnot. Not the one on the runway.
The black
that was crazy, the black balloon things. But he got so big that Sam Smith apparently took notice of the Korean comedian parodying him and left some comments on social media. What do you think of that? Is that fashion that's going to become mainstream? Surely not. But who knows? Who knows, right?
Who knows? Shall we talk about the forehead touch?
What do you mean, the forehead touch?
Well, you and I will do it while the producer puts some photos on the screen. How about that? And nobody will be any the wiser.
Okay.
This is Kim Tae-hee. You like Kim Tae-hee, don't you?
I do. Although this photo's when she's really young. I can't
and Song
remember.
Seung-hun. This is a famous pose that was used by Andre Kim. Now, at the end of his catwalk shows, he would bring the lead woman, the hottest stars, they would come The male star and the female star would come, put their foreheads together to signify love and conclusion. The woman would always be on the left and the man would be on the right. And so when he like moved them around, or when two men did it sometimes, that would always cause a big discussion. But this was his signature pose at the end of every show.
Wow.
The forehead touch.
That is interesting because, catwalks, you don't really associate them with too much like physical contact or anything, but he'd get the two leads to finish up like this.
Yep, exactly. There you can see him pointing, and this is what he did. And he had so many big stars. There you've got Lee Da-hee and Chang Gun-seok. But so many of them did it. So many were associated with being the finale of the André Kim show. That could make your career at some stage.
I'm guessing that would be amazing for your resume, right? And it's not just models, it's like proper celebrities, A-listers. And if you see in this photo, he was also famous not just for the hair or the paint on his head, but also that really white powdered makeup, right? Almost like a ghost, right?
Before it was popular. Now everybody's going for that pale look these days. If you watch the news in Korea, wow.
That is true.
Signature man. Now, there's this amazing thing that as Korea became rich and as Korea's socio-economic conditions changed, then everybody was wearing fashionable stuff, and fashion just wasn't this out there thing that was this luxury designer brand, but everybody sort of became affluent and middle class. And so André Kim's relationship and his position in society thereby changed. So it wasn't this kind of fantasy Disney world that no one could interact with. Everyone was interacting with it, and André Kim, he kind of became a figure of, comedy in such a way, and that was a little bit sad, and it was nothing to do with him, but Korea's changing fortunes.
Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. And he did clothes, that sold. You would be able to buy his clothes and stuff later on in his life, and he had his whole brand and line and things like that. His life, though, not completely scandal-free?
Absolutely completely scandal-free.
Oh!
You just read the word scandal and you were like, come on, celebrities.
Yes.
No, this is amazing. 1999, there's a clothing lobby scandal, and dresses were being given around as forms of bribery and things like this. And because some of them were André Kim's dresses, he was called into court, right, to try to testify. And so he goes in. Let's try to show you a picture of him in court in 1999. And we'll have to make this picture a little bit bigger for you. But they ask him, what is your name? And he says, André Kim. And they say, no, what is your real name? Because it's a court. And he has to say, my name is Kim Bong-nam.
Oh, from earlier.
And this is the first time the people of Korea find out his real name.
Oh, really?
This is, he has to reveal. So he's not André Kim. His real name is Kim Bong-nam. He has to say, I was born in 1935. He has to tell them where he got his name. And the person interviewing him says, oh, that was a good decision. Well done. But this is when the sort of myth or the mystique around him was revealed. He was actually a real Korean. And during this, he was acquitted of any wrongdoing. And it was also revealed that he paid all his taxes. He was really diligent in all his work. There was nothing bad. And he came across as sort of a humble, nice guy.
Oh, that's good. So it actually worked in favour of his image then.
Absolutely. It gave him a really positive reputation. There were lots of parodies about the way, so that Kim Bong-nam name became popular. And if you ask, who is Kim Bong-nam, that will come up.
Yeah.
But it did lead to the parodies because of the way he spoke, because of his mannerisms. This is an eccentric by then. He was born in 1935, so in 1999, he's approaching his 70s.
Yeah.
This is an eccentric old man. He's a fashion designer. So it led to lots of parodies like your friend is doing of Sam Smith.
Yes.
And at first he said he was kind of perturbed by it. He found it unnerving. He didn't like it, but then he learned to accept it, and he learned to feel that people are doing what makes them happy. And all the quotes that I found about him, he said there's nobody that could perfectly mimic him. They all tried, but he was like, you're not quite getting it.
They weren't quite there. In the next photo, you said earlier he was never married.
Correct.
This is a photo of him and his son.
And his son, he adopted an 18-month-year-old boy in 1982.
Wow.
This is Kim Jong-do. This is adopted son. And this is him at his graduation. André Kim said he'd never cried as much as he did when his son graduated.
Oh.
His son has now taken over the André Kim sort of business and the
Wow.
brand, the company. He's trying to diversify it. But this is his son. He never married his entire life, André Kim, but he did have a son who's grown up and who's taken over the family business and now speaks and tries to carry on his father's legacy. He said he'll never be able to live up to what his father's done, but he's himself trying to do that. And it's nice to see that connection.
Yeah, and we can't leave this out because if you've seen any of the parodies of André Kim, you'll know what they're kind of pointing towards. But at the time when he was around, it wasn't easy to be open about him being gay.
Yeah, well, this is the constant denial of his gayness, I think. And this is a little bit sad. I don't want to bring him out because it was never officially revealed.
Okay.
But those that did know him and those that spent time with him, it was an obvious fact. But yet, because of the way South Korea was, the society maybe wasn't ready for that. He didn't want to affect his reputation. And so there was this kind of queer washing, this whitewashing of that part of his history. And now as he's exalted as a national treasure and he's remembered for his influences, you know, it's a question, should we acknowledge all parts of him or do we leave that one aside? South Korea is changing, and I think it's really interesting that South Korea's history might change in the future. As the modernity in South Korea changes, its reflections on the past might also change.
That's really interesting. And then, you know, to close out, we've got to talk about his death 5 years ago. No.
You've suddenly put me on the spot. I believe it's 2010. I'm looking at my paper here.
No, that's right.
Please correct me if I'm wrong, Petey Nim.
I do believe.
He, August 12th, he passes away of cancer. Many of the top stars in the country come, like members of SHINee, SM Entertainment founder Lee Soo-man. They're all coming to pay their tributes to him. It was a very Buddhist ceremony that was done in those traditions, but his memory, and again, just another picture of the man smiling away, the legacy, the effect that he had on South Korea, and that he was... I asked actually my hairdresser about André Kim. I was like, tell me some stories. And he said, André Kim always lived outside of time. So when he was growing up in the 60s and 70s, in the 80s, he was never quite right for the time. He was always outside. He was always himself. He lived according to his own time period rather than the society around him. And, well, I hope he's still living in his own time now, doing what he does best, and that's smiling and creating.
Yeah, I hope so too. You're right, 2010, August 12th. What a life. And there's lots of information if you want to find out more on the internet, even in English, because, like you said, he was a global fashion star for a big time as well. David, as ever, thank you so much for that interesting deep dive. We'll see you again next Monday.
See you next Monday. Thanks very much, everybody.
You can listen to Monday's segment Now and Then with David Tizard every Monday from 10 a.m. KST on #DailyK.